Right, I declare the meeting open and welcome you to this month's meeting of Council. The recording of this Council meeting will be available to the public on Council's website for a minimum period of 6 months. In accordance with Council policy, I will now ask Council staff to confirm that the recording has commenced.
Yes, it has, ma'am.
Thank you. I'd first of all like to acknowledge that we meet today on the land of the Malacca people, the traditional custodians of this land. Our Aboriginal people have cared for our land and our waterways for over 40,000 years in Tasmania, and we pay respect to them, their culture, their elders past, present and emerging. Before we commence the official business for this evening, the Council would like to recognise the accident at Hillcrest Primary School today. To the parents, family members, friends, teachers and students, we extend our deepest sympathies at this devastating time. We also extend our concerns and care to emergency service persons and those that were first on the scene. We support that acknowledgement by a minute's silence now. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Attending the Council meeting tonight, we have Councillors Deputy Mayor Doyle, Councillor Campbell, Councillor Gibson, Councillor Lovell, Councillor Prince, Councillor Newell and Councillor O'May. Introducing General Manager Jason Brown, and if you'd like to introduce the staff that are here this evening. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. We've got Matthew Grimsey, our Director Legal and Governance Services, David Spinks, our Director Corporate Services, Rebecca Stevenson, our Director of Community Services, our Director of Infrastructure Services and Acting Director Environment and Development Services, Lachlan Francis, an apology.
Thank you.
And our support staff, Sandy Russell, Executive Assistant, and Michael Glazer, ITC Officer.
Lovely, thank you very much. There are no councillors that are on leave of absence and no one is absent. We're all here in attendance. Item 3, declarations of interest. I do have one declaration of interest that's been presented to me. That's by Councillor Prince, agenda number 9A. 0.028/21, which is a planning application. Are there any other declarations of interest this evening? No? Thank you very much. We now move on to item 4, confirmation of minutes. Do I have a councillor to move the minutes for the ordinary meeting of Council Wednesday the 24th of November? That's Councillor O'May and seconded by Councillor Newell. Thank you. We do have a request from the Huon Valley Residents and Ratepayers Association that was sent out to all councillors regarding comments, if I just read them out, that having read the draft minutes of the November meeting of Council, I note that the summary of the questions for the Huon Valley Residents and Ratepayers Association posed is incomplete and the response given is incomplete and thus misleading. You will see that although Mayor Enders was mistaken in her response to the first question we posed, this is not indicated at all in the minutes. I just want to refer to the professional advice, first of all, of our Director of Governance, just regarding how minutes have been recorded in the past. And if you could respond first regarding that, and then we'll have consideration by the councillors. Thank you.
Through you, Mayor, the responsibility in relation to minutes and questions asked without notice at public question time is that the question and a summary of any answer given in response is minuted. Council does not do Hansard type minuting. Ultimately, it's a matter for the councillors to consider in confirmation of the minutes.
Thank you. So are there any, before we consider that one, and perhaps you might want to ask further questions if you need to, do the councillors have any amendments that they wish to put forward? Do you have any questions?
I just have a question. Is there any reason why we wouldn't correct the minutes to reflect that?
Yep, just through the General Manager to Matthew. Were you able to give some history behind it, perhaps?
Sorry, Councillor. So it's important that the minutes are accurate and reflective. So based upon the information that you've been provided in that email and based upon what you've read in the minutes, you need to make a judgment call as to whether or not that's an accurate summary of the answers given.
So that's an amendment would be required and need to be voted on.
Well, I would suggest that if the Huron Valley ratepayers have requested it and it is a more accurate minute, I would suggest that it would be a good thing to correct.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Councillor Neal?
Just one from me. We do record the whole session, so wouldn't that be the ultimate minutes? I mean, people only have to go to the website and they can watch it.
However, they are only on record for, guaranteed for 6 months. That the actual video recording, which is different to the hard copy typed, which has to be kept for how many years does the minutes need to be kept for? Do we know?
It is
Sorry,
that recording
Matthew.
that's been referred to by Huron Valley ratepayers as well.
The recording that we edit?
Wait,
I wouldn't think so.
no, we
No.
don't edit the recording. No. It's when the minutes are typed up. They're typed up from the record. Summarised, that's it. That's a good word of saying. They're summarised. Otherwise, for example, when we have our debate, the whole debate's not typed out like a Hansard report would be. And so this is looking at a specific request, which is different to our normal practice that we would do. So it doesn't mean that we're changing our practice moving forward of what we do. This is a specific request from the Huron Valley Residents and Ratepayers Association regarding their question.
Would there be a cost to the ratepayer to make it so that we write every...
Oh, in future?
Yes.
Oh, well, it would take a lot longer if that was the case.
It's going to be a cost.
This is asking one individual case. So it's one individual case.
Okay.
Yeah, just to consider that way. Any questions? Okay, so correct me if I'm... So it looks like I'm getting a consensus that there isn't any issue with amending the minutes? No?
No.
Councillor O'May? No concerns with that? Okay, all right. Councillor Lovell? No, you're fine? All right. So, therefore, the motion includes just the amendment to include the full question and the full answer for that meeting, in relation to that meeting, which is the minutes of the 24th of November 2021. Okay. So all those, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, raise your hand. Oh, well, that's fine. You don't have to. And you've got a question.
Yeah. Are we opening the door for this to happen every time something's not right?
I don't think enough people actually look in the gallery each time who's here and how many people view. So I don't think we're opening up the door. But
sorry, Mayor, may I get Councillor Dole to repeat that question? I didn't hear what it was.
I said, are we opening the door for more questions to be asked?
Okay.
expanded on.
Yeah.
Typed up. No, I don't think we're going to be challenged with that frequently. All right, I'll put the vote then. All those in favour, please raise your hand. And that is Councillor Campbell, Councillor Gibson, Councillor Lovell, Councillor Prince, Councillor O'May, Councillor Newell, Mayor Enders, and those against is Councillor Doyle. Thank you, and that's carried. Thank you very much. Oh, my apologies. Sorry, I didn't record Councillor Clark as an apology earlier on.
right.
Can you please amend that record? Thank you. Anyway, thank you for that. Right, we go on to item 5. There are nil legislative items. And item 6, there is one urgent matter, and the General Manager will read that out. Thank you.
Yes, Mayor, I bring forward the following matter, which is an insurance claim indemnity dispute. In accordance with Regulations 8, subsection 6 of the Local Government Meeting Procedures Regulations 2015, the General Manager reports that the matter was not included on the agenda for the meeting as the advice was not received until the 14th of December 2021. The matter is urgent as the response is required following the Council meeting. Advice has been provided under Section 65 of the Act in a report to be discussed in closed council,
Yeah,
sorry.
there's a typo.
And the recommendation pursuant to Regulation 8, subsection 6 of the Local Government Meeting Procedures Regulations 2015, the urgent matter of an insurance claim indemnity dispute to be listed on agenda for discussion as an agenda item 20.080/21 in closed council.
Thank you very much. I put the motion. Sorry, not I put the motion. I'm looking for someone to move a motion. Thank you. That's Councillor Prince. A seconder, please. Councillor Gibson. And is there any discussion on that? No? Okay, lovely. I'll put the motion then. All those in favour, please raise your hand. And that's all councillors present, and the motion is carried. Thank you. Okay, we now go on to item 7, announcements. Councillors, do you have any announcements this evening? No? All right, lovely. Oh, yes, Councillor Gibson.
I was just wanting to talk briefly about the Planning Matters Alliance meeting last Thursday. Oh, was it? Tuesday, Thursday? This week. And it was really good and interesting, and alerted people to the fact that, you know, now is the time to act with regard to looking at the zoning changes with the new planning scheme, and it was really good for Huon Valley Ratepayers to organise this workshop. I think they're planning to organise another one in the new year. Yeah, I guess the more people do their homework before the 60 days, the more likely there's not going to be a huge rush of people wanting to make adjustments or ask questions. So I think early action on this is a really good thing, and yeah.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Prince.
Yeah, I just briefly wanted to congratulate the University Devils Gridiron team, who played a number of their home games down at Commandy this season. They, as the underdogs, came away with the win at Tiger Bowl number 8 this year, so thank you very much, and hopefully you'll be playing Gridiron in the Huon next year.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor May.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to reiterate Councillor Gibson's remarks in regards to the planning proposal that's been put up, not by this council, but by the planning authorities in Hobart, or wherever the base of the planning people are. I think it's very important we have a window of opportunity for any residents that are planning any future development of their land, or any farmers or any landholders whatsoever, or any residents just concerned about their line of sight or beautification of the hillside or whatever, to have some input into this draft management plan, as there is a window and opportunity there. I think it was 60 days, wasn't it, I think?
Yeah.
60 days where you have the opportunity to make an input to get change. Otherwise, that opportunity will have closed, and it's very difficult to come back in arrears and make amendments. So, yeah, I feel very strongly about people participating in this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, I just have one announcement which relates to the latest data on our vaccination rates for the Huon Valley. It's a very quick one. Just to let everybody know that as of the 12th of December, COVID vaccinations for the Huon Valley stood at 92.6% for the first dose and 86.6% for the second dose. And as an observation, most Tasmanian local government areas are over 90% vaccination for their first dose. And this data is available, you can keep an eye on it yourself, at www.health.gov.au website. Booster notifications are arriving into the hands of those vaccinated twice already, so please schedule in your booster shot. For those not already vaccinated, we encourage you to do so and give yourself and others a healthier outlook for Tasmania. And the General Manager has some advice as well.
I do, thank you, Mayor. Just confirming that we've received confirmation of the appointment for Ms Rebecca Bell as the Municipal Emergency Management Coordinator for the Huon Valley in accordance with Section 23 of the Emergency Management Act 2006 for 12 months effective from the 16th of November 2021.
Excellent, good news. Thank you very much. All right, so we'll move on to item 8, public participation. Public question time. Answers to previous questions taken on notice is nil. Questions on notice. There are questions there. Nikki Hines, Mike Wilson, Mr. and Mrs. Borlase, and these questions and the answers are located on our website. They're actually very detailed, so I won't read those out. But you certainly can have a look at them in the report. The agenda, sorry, they're displayed quite well there. So what we'll do is we'll move on to questions without notice. So if you have a question as the chair, I'll ask you to come forward to the microphone and identify yourself by name and area where you live. And to make things fair and equitable, we have a limit of 2 questions per person if we can get through in the 15 minutes that we have. All questions asked must be directed to me as the chairperson, and I will answer the question or refer the question to another councillor or the General Manager, who may in turn refer to the appropriate director for the answer. Every attempt will be made to provide that answer to your question, and debate on questions cannot be entered into. The council cannot make decisions on issues that arise at public question time. In addition, council will not accept or answer any questions that don't relate to the activities of the council, relate to an item listed on the agenda at the meeting, relates to any matter which would normally be discussed in the closed, and in the opinion of the chairperson contains an insult, makes a personal reflection on a councillor or an employee of council, or imputes an improper motive on a councillor, employee of council. I will go to the gallery first of all to see whether there are any questions before I go to the ones that have been provided to us. Yes, thank you. If you'd like to come forward and state your name and where you're from. Thank you.
Is the microphone on? Yes. Pat Singh on behalf of the Huon Valley Residents Ratepayers Association. Sorry, I'm from Kettering, Leamington. Wrong question. Not on behalf of the Ratepayers Association at all. It's on my own behalf. In this week's Huon News, you announced that funding had been secured for a Cygnet Township plan, and in tonight's agenda, mention is also made of a Cygnet Township plan on page 27, which it appears actually relates to the planning for the proposed new street and not for development of a township master plan. This is confusing. My understanding is that the $5 million in state government funding is specifically for development of the new street. The new street planning must, of course, include further community consultation, but development of a Cygnet Township master plan is a far broader exercise and should be funded by Council as part of its strategic planning programme. So my question is, 1, would you please explain what you are referring to when you use the term Cygnet Township plan in the context of the $5 million in state government funding? And 2, if you are referring specifically to the planning for the development of the new street, would you please make this clear in future to avoid confusion? Thank you.
I did the interview, so I will respond. We are exploring about the master plan because they really can't be done in isolation of each other, the new road.
Yep,
So
I think they should be together, yeah.
that's right, exactly. So that is the ethos of the response that I provided, is that we are exploring that at the same time.
To
With
conduct
the- with-
them
yes.
together.
Yes,
in
because
parallel.
we are talking to the state government, and my understanding is they also appreciate that we need more of an overall plan for
Good.
that area. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you very much.
Yes, would you like to come forward, please?
Liz Smith, Signet. My question relates to the councillor questions, page 26, under 12 in the agenda. Thank you, Mayor, for asking about an update on the progress of projects that received funding for election priorities earlier this year. I have questions about the proposed project at Burton's Reserve to build a pump track. As many of you know, I used to live opposite Burton's Reserve, which is part of a conservation area, and have observed the changes over the past 20 years. Significant parts of the reserve are now occupied by recreation infrastructure, a large barbecue shelter, 2 playground areas, a swings area, the skate park, which has been a great success, and a fitness station, which is hardly ever used. There are also 2 small heritage-listed cottages and the Scout Hall and its large storage sheds. Another large area is fenced off for the sewage pumping station, and there's a substantial area of car park. From the response to your request for information, it seems that there is an engagement plan at inform level, that the scope of the works is complete, and a contractor already engaged for this $20,000 project, which is to start sometime after April. And yet, as far as I know, no stakeholders, such as the Signet Association, have been consulted. So my question is, what is a pump track? How was the demand for it assessed? Where is it proposed to locate it? How would it supplement what is already available at the skate park in Burton's Reserve? And would it further reduce green space in the reserve?
Thank you for the question. My understanding is that the Director of Infrastructure, Lachlan Cranz, who would normally be here, but he's an apology, is the person that would be able to answer that question for you. So we will need to take that one on notice, Dr. Smith. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, I'll move on to some questions that we've received via email today. So one from Archie Donnelly of Signet. It reads, it took only 3.5 weeks to gather the 1,401 signatures, or 10% of the Huon Valley residents, to sign the petition to hold a public meeting into the recruitment process of the new General Manager, now before the Council. The question is, does the Council recognise this is a significant proportion of their residents, and so will the Council give an undertaking to broadcast the meeting live for the benefit of those residents who are concerned about the recruitment process but are unable to attend the meeting? And our response is, depending on the outcome of the item 9.002/21 of the agenda, this will be a consideration for the Council following the 4th of the January special meeting. Thank you. If you can keep an eye on the time for me, please, Sandy. Thank you very much. The next question is from Rick Arthur of Leamington. I've been unable to get an answer from the planning people in the Council about whether it is necessary to get development or building approval to place a shipping container on private property. It is possible to see more than 20 such containers from public roads within 15 kilometres of Huonville, including in the Council depot in Huonville. They are often very unsightly. If permits are needed, why does the Council not enforce this? And the response is, to Mr Arthur, The requirement to obtain a planning permit for a container, which is considered an outbuilding in terms of the Huon Valley Interim Planning Scheme 2015, is dependent on the specifics of the proposal and on the planning controls applicable to the proposed container site. This may include the property zone, the number of existing outbuildings, the container location, and whether this is within acceptable zone setbacks, and the presence of any planning codes. Final determination of a permit requirement can only be made on submission of the necessary details as part of a preliminary planning assessment or formal planning application. The planning scheme includes 2 general exemptions for outbuildings which are applicable to all zones. These are outbuilding floor area no more than 10 square metres with a maximum of 2 on a lot, no side longer than 3.2 metres and building height of no more than 2.4 metres. Outbuilding floor area no more than 18 square metres with a maximum of 1 on a lot. Roof span cannot be more than 3 metres, height no more than 2.4 metres, no more than 0.9 metres from a building or boundary, and no cut or fill more than 0.5 metres. Similarly, with building permits, the size, placement, container modifications and intended use will always determine whether a building permit is required and, if it is, what level of risk it is classed at. The Consumer Building and Occupational Services section of the Department of Justice have an information sheet to assist members of the public with building permit requirements for containers. In terms of compliance enforcement, Council periodically receives complaints related to containers and actively investigates all complaints to determine whether compliance action is required. Compliance action may include both voluntary and enforced compliance actions to address potential breaches. Thank you for that question. It was a very lengthy answer and technical, and it's available on the website. Have we sent that response directly to the gentleman as well? Not yet, we will. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. The next question is from Mr Geoffrey Swan. The question is, the former Director of Local Government, Craig Limpkin, has this week responded to my question as to why our council is planning to undertake training using a private trainer rather than the nil-cost Integrity Commission offering, and he has stated there is no responsibility for the department in relation to this matter. Will council please explain why they have opted to undertake conflict of interest training with a commercial provider in February 2022, which is just 7 months away from the next election, at a cost to ratepayers of $7,920, when the Integrity Commission provides a fully customisable training option at nil cost? And will our Mayor please advise how many hours training is involved in the cost, and is it mandatory for all councillors to attend? And the response is, as per the answer to a similar question at the November 2021 meeting, the Integrity Commission provides a broad range of training opportunities. However, the Council is seeking to specifically address recommendations and process improvements made and suggested from the Edge Legal and Auditors General's report. If the Integrity Commission had been the answer to the findings of the Edge Legal report, the Director of Local Government and the Auditor General would have referred the Council to the Integrity Commission. The Director of Local Government is the authority, and he did not refer the Huon Valley Council to the Integrity Commission, but he did support the recommendation of Local Government of Tasmania of the nominated training providers. With regard to the second question, I refer you to the proposal from WLF Accounting Advisory, including in the attachment for agenda item 15.032/21 at the 24th November 2021 Council meeting. Whilst there is a commitment in the Councillor Declaration of Office to engage in ongoing professional development, there is nothing within the Local Government Act 1993 that compels councillors' attendance. Thank you. We next move on to Ginny May of Huonville. Question: November Council meeting had a report in open council regarding General Manager's recruitment process and 2 reports in closed council regarding General Manager's recruitment training and appointment of a GM performance specialist. As the amendment to the terms of reference in report 15.032/21 was not passed, does this mean the original General Manager's Performance Review Committee remains at the original 4 members, being Enders, Doyle, Campbell and Prince? And the response, Jeannie, is yes, the original panel members remain in place as a result of that decision. How are we going for time, Sandy?
Couple minutes.
Thank you. We now go on to Howard Wilcoxon of the Signet Association. As most of you would be aware, the section of the Leamington Road between the Cygnet Sailing Club and Katos Bay is much used by pedestrians. This is likely to increase with the building of the new public jetty. There are 2 blind corners. The edge of the road drops off and there is no footpath whatsoever. In documentation prepared for Council in 2016, the cost of building a walkway from the Cygnet Sailing Club to the Katos Bay boat ramp was estimated to be $310,000, and the General Manager at the time, Simone Watson, wrote that the project is currently included in the allocation for the 2022-23 and the 23-24 financial years, and that we intend over the coming months to start work on the documentation required for this project and commence applying for the appropriate permits. Emilio Reali confirmed this in 2018 when he was the General Manager. Despite a $250,000 grant having now been secured from the Vulnerable Road Users Program and significant savings have been made on other infrastructure projects, we are now told that due to uncertainty about the eventual costs due to the lack of geotechnical and marine engineering reports, this grant money should be returned and the project should be deferred until such time as adequate plans are prepared. The question is if this project is to be deferred, could Council indicate when will these plans be prepared and what is meant by marine engineering reports and, engineering reports in this context? Surely marine engineering is somewhat odd for a footpath, though it is adjacent to the foreshore. And Howard, we will need to take that question on notice and come back to you. Thank you. All right, I'll just read out one more because it is from a new person, and it's my last one there from a new person. This is from Teresa Daly. I'm a ratepayer from Garden Island Creek. I see that the Hobart City Council has banned unvaccinated people from entering their buildings, including the Tip Shop, Aquatic Centre and multi-storey car parks managed by them. Today is day 1 of not being allowed to access our beloved Cygnet Library. As a home educator, this stings. I have sent a complaint to Libraries Tasmania. I'm unsure exactly where our rates go, but if the Huon Valley Council follows suit with the Hobart City Council and bans unvaccinated ratepayers from buildings and tips, will our rates be amended? I see no reason to be paying full rates if we are unable to fully utilise the services. Are you able to advise me of the future direction of the Huon Valley Council in regards to vaccination mandates and facilities managed by you? And the response is, Council has been proactive in responding to the COVID situation over the past 2 years. We have safety management plans in place, risk assessments regularly reviewed, and an outbreak management plan that will be finalised shortly. As a result of these considerations, we have chosen not to mandate that staff or customers entering our facilities be double vaccinated. There are, of course, some examples such as childcare facilities and medical facilities where, in accordance with public health directives, additional requirements have been put in place. We have no plans to amend rates obligations in the event facilities are required to limit services or close. At all times, we will be guided by public health service advice. Thank you. Right, so now we move on to item 8.2. There are nil deputation addresses to Council. Item 9, there are nil petitions. The first report for this evening is the petition requesting a public meeting regarding the process undertaken by Huon Valley Council for recruiting and appointing the new General Manager. I would just like to mention at the beginning of this, in the recommendation, it states a time of, in B, part of recommendation, it states the commencement time of a special meeting to be 6 p.m, but I have been advised tonight that if councillors preferred a 5 p.m. start instead of a 6 p.m. start, then legislatively that could actually be done. All right, I just wanted to put that out there. And of course, if that was the case, then somebody would need to amend that. To move the motion, yes?
Yeah, I'd like to amend the motion there.
Oh, yeah, okay, so we need to move it first before we, yep. So did you want to move it with that amendment
Yes, please.
to 5 p.m?
5 p.m.
All right, is there a seconder for moving that? Okay, all right, yeah, sorry for the minutes. So that was Councillor Newell moving that motion of an amendment. Councillor Prince, that is seconding that. Would you like to speak for that amended motion?
No, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Just,
All right.
time.
Okay, all right. And so is there anyone to speak against that motion? All right. Then with that change, so I just want to make sure everybody is comfortable that A, the report on the petition regarding the process undertaken by Huon Valley Council for recruiting and appointing the new General Manager and requesting the Council to hold a public meeting regarding the matter be received and noted. And B, a special meeting to be called for 5 p.m. on Tuesday the 4th of January 2022 at the Council Chambers, Main Street, Huonville, to consider the assessment of and any action to be taken on the petition regarding the process undertaken by Huon Valley Council for recruiting and appointing the new General Manager and requesting the Council to hold a public meeting regarding the matter. So now that there's no one speaking against the motion, I will put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. And that's all councillors present, and the motion is carried. Thank you very much. The next item we have, yes, thank you. Councillor Prince is leaving us because of the declaration. But you will notice that there is a slight change to the meeting agenda tonight. The reports considered by Council acting as a planning authority have moved from agenda item 17 to 9A, and this will allow those interested in the reports, particularly applicants and representors, to have an easier access to the decision-making process at the beginning of the agenda. So I now advise that Council is acting as a planning authority as at 6:36. Okay. In accordance with the provisions of Part 2, Regulation 25 of the Local Government Meeting Procedures, Regulations 2015, the Council will now act as a planning authority pursuant to the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993. The report we have before us is the planning application for 2 multiple dwellings at 23B Louisa Street, Ranelagh, CT 175580/2 and it's DA 275/2021. The agenda number is 9A.028/21. I refer councillors to the recommendation of this report, please. Do I have a councillor to move a motion? Yes, Councillor Gibson.
I'd like to move an alternative.
You'd like to move an alternative motion? And the alternative motion being?
To refuse it.
To refuse it. All right. Is there a seconder to refuse? Councillor Campbell. Okay. All right. And so would you like to speak for that alternative motion, please?
I think it's all about the sort of development we're trying to have here in the Huon. And I think this one is just putting too much pressure on the size of the block. And where it comes unstuck is in the private open space for the 2 units. So the code stipulates 24 square metres with a minimum dimension of 4 metres. Unit 1 has a 9.6 metre squared private open space, 1150 wide, and Unit 2 has a 7.29 square metre space with a minimum dimension of 2700. So that's in it's written into the assessment by our planners as that it does not comply with the acceptable solution, which is obvious. But then it goes on to say that that it's considered appropriate for the size of the dwelling and take into account the grassed areas on the ground floor. But the grass area on the ground floor is a 1 metre strip between the bedroom and the fence, and the code is very particular about the private open space having to be in one lump, one parcel, so you can't really split it up. And what these private open spaces are trying to achieve is space for, you know, kids to play, dining, outdoor dining, entertaining, and outdoor relaxing. Now, a 2.7 by 2.7 deck is not enough room, in my opinion, for children to play or to entertain. It's just enough to have a small dining table for 4 people. So I just think it's pushing it too far, especially for 4-bedroom houses. You know, if you look at the amount of concrete and driveway to get the cars in and out for the houses, that's just a huge amount of space. And then I think that there's another factor in here, of course, that part of the block is in a lot of the block is actually in the access drive, so that makes it even tighter. It also doesn't meet the minimum subdivision of 325 square metres. I know that there are, within the 100 metre radius, there are other examples of similar developments, not as tight as this. Well, and I haven't looked at them in detail, but this seems to be certainly on the tight side. Yeah, I just think that they should. The houses should be reduced a bit in size, and the private open spaces brought up to a size that people can actually use.
Thank you. Does anybody wish to speak for the alternative motion?
Was that for, sorry, Mayor?
For the alternative motion, first of all, to speak for the alternative motion. Anybody wish to speak against the alternative motion? Yep, first of all, Councillor Newell.
Yeah, I'd like to speak against the alternative motion. We are in a situation at the moment in this valley and everywhere else where we need more houses. I mean, this is putting 2 houses on a block. Our experts have recommended us to approve these dwellings with conditions. Now, part of the conditions is that there'll be a minimum of 60 square metres in private area.
Sorry, Councillor Newell, can you put on your... Thank you.
One of the conditions is that a minimum of 60 square metres of private open space must be provided for each dwelling. How are we ever going to house people if we keep knocking back these developments? We're probably getting an extra house on a block that we'd normally only have one house on. I think we have to go with our experts and approve it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else to speak for the alternative motion? Anyone to speak against
Can I ask a question of Councillor Newell? The 60 square metre...
Condition number 2 of the planning permit.
How is...
It's on page 21 for all of our notes.
Yeah. I'm just getting down to it, but I just can't see how that's achievable.
Well, that's not what we're here, are we?
Yep. Councillor May, sorry, you wish to speak against the alternative motion. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. In response to Councillor Gibson's amendment here, I respect your specifically your previous professional background in this area, but I question your motive here. As I attended the planning meeting with you the other night, organised by the Yuan Valley Ratepayers Association, and we both sat and heard the proposals for future boundary changes and development changes, and having my hat on as a farmer or a supporter of agriculture in this valley, I believe that we should be trying to support, in my view, personal view, some more medium density housing, preferably than pressure on our farmland and agriculture. So I don't see the merit in what you're suggesting. I understand what you're trying to say, but you also haven't taken into consideration, in my view, what our planner has suggested, that there's also some deck space that is available under this plan for kids to play and outdoor activities, even though that it's deck space and not grassed areas. As
I don't mind deck space, it's just too small.
I agree with what you said, but I'm just questioning your wisdom in trying to not go with what our planner has recommended here, and the overview of what we heard at the planning meeting the other night. Is it really wise to do what you're suggesting? So I tend to agree with Councillor Newell that we need housing and we need things to happen in this valley, put a roof over people's heads. I agree with you that we should be trying to do it right, but in this situation, I believe we should be trying to strive more for public open space for people to get outdoors, as opposed to waste ground, and let this proposal proceed in its current form, in my view. So that's all I've got to say. Thank you, Matt.
All right, thank you. If there's...
Excuse me, am I allowed to speak?
No, you're not. No. Sorry, apologies, but no. So is there anyone else to speak for the alternative motion? Okay, well, look, then I will ask for a close.
Sorry, Mayor. Just for the purpose of clarifying what that motion is,
Yes.
because Councillor Gibson just talked
Yes.
about refusal.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it would be paragraph A as it is in the report. Paragraph B would be a permit be refused for the two multiple dwellings at 23B Louisa Street, Ranelagh, CT, DA, in accordance with Section 57 of the Land Use Planning Approvals Act, for the reason that the application does not meet the requirements for private open spaces required in 10.4.3 A2 and P2. Is that what you're after, Councillor?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matthew. Right, so would you like to have a closing statement?
Yeah, I would. I am pro density in towns, but we're here to make sure that these developments are good to live in, that they actually meet, the minimum requirements that the planning scheme sets out. So I think it's a bit of a slippery slide if we just say, because we want denser housing in our towns, we just let everything go. I think that this design could be adjusted to provide private open space that is suitable to the house. I think that you could amend, that would be a separate thing, but you could amend the 60 square metre per... I mean, I just don't see how that's achievable. It says it's... Because private open space has to be contiguous and it has to be connected to living space, so... Anyway, no, I think that it's just not quite good enough, to be honest.
All right, well then I'll put the motion, which is the alternative motion that was read out by Matthew. All those in favour of the alternative motion, please raise your hand. And that's Councillor Gibson and Councillor Campbell. And those against is Councillor Doyle, Councillor O'May, Councillor Newell, Councillor Lovell and Mayor Enders. Thank you. And that is lost. It's lost. So now we need to go and do the motion again. So for the original recommendation, calling for a mover, Councillor Newell. A seconder, please. Councillor Campbell. Councillor Lovell. Sorry. Thank you, Sandy. Councillor Lovell. Councillor Newell, do you wish to speak to that, the motion that's here in front of us?
Just quickly, just to reiterate what I said, I think we've got to encourage developers down here to start building us some medium to high density housing, to house simply the house people affordably. There's some good conditions here. The 60 square metres of open space, I think they'll address the issues that we need to, and we need it. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Anyone that wishes to speak for the motion?
Am I able to suggest an amendment to this?
Yeah, or you can foreshadow and just put.
Can we
Yes.
vote on this motion first before we do an amendment?
Yeah, that's a procedural.
Yeah.
That's a procedural motion.
Well, then there's no
But yeah,
chance to amend it.
Well, you have a
That's-
chance. You amended the motion once. I mean, do we just all night just go backwards and forwards?
a procedural motion is the only thing that you can do to take it straight to a vote, and there's no further discussion, if that's the case.
Oh, well, I'd like to move a procedural motion.
All right.
Through you, Mayor.
But planning's different? Is that what you're going to tell me?
No, planning is the same. I
Yeah.
think the issue that you have before you is
Yeah.
Councillor Gibson was
Spoke first.
in proposing an amendment,
Okay,
which
fair
I
enough.
would understand would be to a condition, so that's the order.
All right. So in this case, is it a foreshadowed motion and he puts the idea out there for consideration, or do we go straight back to the mover and seconded for considering the amendment?
So through you, Mayor, it's not a foreshadowed motion. The alternative has been put and lost.
Yes.
So it would simply be proposing an amendment to the conditions.
To
So
the-
whether that is acceptable to the mover and
That's
seconder
right.
or
Okay.
a
Or
separate
gets voted
amendment
on.
has to be made.
Okay. So therefore, if you speak to your amendment that you're proposing, and it would need to be the mover and the seconder that would need to approve that amendment.
So in point 2, a minimum of 60 square metres of private open space must be provided for each dwelling. I just want to insert an extra sentence in there that 24 square metres, which is the council code, of private open space be provided at living room, adjacent to the living room for each unit.
So say that again, please.
24 square metres, that's what's stipulated in the code, is of private open space is adjacent to the living rooms of the units.
So what extra square meterage would that?
No, it's within the 60,
It is within the 60.
yes.
So does that mean repositioning?
It's just, there's a whole roof there.
Yeah.
There's a whole roof that doesn't have deck on it. If you increase the deck of one of the units, you could achieve a much better outdoor space very easily. The unit 1 is slightly more difficult, but I haven't sort of put on my designer hat. That's achievable as well.
So we're not sure
But-
whether that would result in a minor amendment or a full application back to council?
Reducing the internal living space. It would be
No, it's not changing the internal living space at all. It's just extending that deck that's sitting on top of the roof a little bit further along so that it's got a bigger deck.
So
Opposite the living room, and the one for the unit 1 might require that the deck goes out a bit further over the visitors' car park, which again is achievable.
So I suppose a couple of things to consider is that we don't have a planner here as well to ask advice about whether it would be result in a minor amendment or a new application, development application. And we have... Oh, Matt. Hello, Matt. Yeah.
Sorry, through you, Mayor. Because you're dealing with it as a planning authority, it is just a minor amendment to a condition, so it can be done by the planning authority tonight because it's relevant to bringing the development into greater conformance with the planning scheme.
Okay. All right. All right. Over to the mover, Councillor Newell, and seconder, Councillor Lovell, to consider.
I'm not prepared to change my motion, thank you, Mayor. I think I'll go with the architect and the council experts on this, and they've approved it they've recommended approval, and I'll stick with that, thank you. Yeah.
Councillor Lovell?
I have to say the same because we don't have a planner here to actually... I know Matt's given us advice in that regard.
Yes.
But I was actually happy with their recommendations in the original report anyway. So
Okay.
I'd have to say I'd be more happy to stick with what it is.
Okay. All right. All right.
We
So,
vote on the amendment then.
well, they haven't accepted the amendment. They haven't accepted the change.
Through you, Mayor, now
Yeah.
the opportunity is for Councillor Gibson to move an amendment
Yeah,
for it to be seconded and then considered.
okay.
I move that amendment.
Okay, you move that amendment?
Those private open spaces
All
get
right.
increased in
A seconder? Okay. Don't need to summarise it, we can just put it straight to the vote?
Yeah, I mean, I would like Councillor Newell to have a look at the site plans to see that...
I've had a look, Paul, thanks. I'm very happy with my knowledge of the site.
All right.
Paul, thanks.
No worries.
All right, so would you like me to put it to the vote then?
Yes.
Yep, I'll put it to the vote then. All those in favour of the amendment?
Sorry, can we have further discussion on this?
Yeah.
Mayor, I mean,
Do you need to understand what the amendment is?
absolutely, Mayor.
Okay, all right, okay. Would you like to...
Sorry,
Can I
Mayor,
show-
but the point I'd like to make is, I understand what's going on here, but I don't understand what Councillor Gibson is proposing here. I'm sorry, my depth of knowledge is not proficient to be able to
Thank you, Scott.
encumber what he's suggesting, and I know Councillor Gibson is an architect, so I do believe he knows exactly what he's talking about, where I don't. So I don't want to have to vote on something
This unit
that
one
I'm not sure
has a
about.
very narrow little deck here, and this one helps. This one has a very small deck there, so I'm proposing that that gets increased and this gets widened, so that those two decks, which are at the living room level, are big enough for kids to play. As simple as that.
So, but shouldn't this be, what about the builders or the proponents?
That's right.
Shouldn't they get a say on what's going on either?
We're the planning authority.
All right, any other questions? All right, I'll put that...
Does anybody else want to see that drawing?
Oh, does anyone want to see the drawing?
Just out of interest?
I'll have a look.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a good idea, what you're suggesting, but I think we're jumping down the end.
So these are the upstairs, which are the living spaces, and that's the little deck they put on. But this is a roof, so that has an extra bit of deck there. That's the living space. And this one's very narrow, so you've got kids playing in that, 1100 wide. Whereas that's a business car park, you just make it a bit wider there, so there's room to play. So it's pretty simple.
You've got 60 square metres of private space for each unit too to
Yes.
play in, Paul.
That's all 1 metre wide,
Yep.
and all of this,
Yep.
it's little bits that kids don't play on. Did you want to see it?
Thanks for it. I did it today, but I leave it.
So that's roof at the moment.
Yep.
So you can put a bigger deck there. And this is a business car park down below, so you can put a wide top.
Absolutely. That's what I was doing. Doesn't really change, what Councillor Gibson is suggesting is just a compromise for more. Can you?
Through you, Mayor, it's not necessarily a compromise. You are sitting as a planning authority are considering to bringing the development into conformity with the planning scheme. So if you believe that there's insufficient private open space and there's an opportunity for it, that's the purpose of the amendment.
So in response to that, can I ask Councillor Gibson, what would you think that would cost the developer, for that small, because, having been through this process myself, as a developer, I would like to just get a bit of an idea of any extra cost in that.
Well, you're doubling the size of the terrace over a room below. So there's, instead of putting a roof on it, you've got to put tiles and. But you're already doing that for parts, so you're doubling that. Look, I couldn't hazard a guess at the cost really. It's too. Wouldn't be very much.
No, I'm
No.
just thinking that as a developer, I would see that as being,
And I think if you're going to sell these houses to a family, you value adding it by more than what you're spending.
well, yeah,
because kids can't play in a metre wide
No.
deck. So if you've got kids, you know, you've got a deck for them to play on.
And that's the living area upstairs too, isn't it?
The living area is upstairs. Yeah.
Point of order, Mayor, can we vote?
All right. So, have you completed your address, your response?
Yes,
now?
I think that, you know, we'd be irresponsible not to do something about this.
Right. Okay. So I will put it to the vote then. All those in favour of the amended motion that was being put forward by Councillor Gibson, can you please raise your hand if you are for that? That's Councillor Gibson and Councillor Campbell. Thank you. Those councillors that are against that or amended motion is Councillor Doyle, Councillor O'May, Councillor Newell, Councillor Lovell and Councillor Enders. Thank you. So we need to go back to the original recommendation in place. And so I'd like a mover for that. Thank you. Yep, Councillor Newell. A seconder, please.
It's already done.
Oh, sorry. Yep, that's true. All right. Fair enough. Thank you. All right. So do you have any closing? Okay. All right. I'll put the motion then. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's Councillor Newell, Councillor Lovell, Councillor Doyle, Councillor O'May, Councillor Enders. Those against, thanks. Councillor Gibson and Councillor Campbell. Thank you. And it's carried. I now advise that the council is no longer acting as a planning authority as at 7:01. 7:01, thank you. We now move to item 10, general reports. The general reports and minutes are presented in relation to the following matters, and the general manager's Thank you. The general manager's operation report. Is everything okay over there? All right, thank you. Is there any items that you wish to speak to in the report? Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to raise some points in the General Manager's operation report, particularly around our participation in the bushfire evacuation exercise with the Canberra Council, Tasmanian Police, Tasmanian Fire Service, which was very timely with the weather warming up. Our presentation to fellow Tasmanian council members at the Local Government Association of Tasmania workshop on developing our Reflect Reconciliation Action Plan, which Angela Barrington and Miranda Wageman did an amazing job. Our Gearing Up program is setting records in November, which was 193.5 hours of supervised driving, 5 provisional 1 driver licence attained. It's no wonder we got some airtime with the ABC and also secured one of the journalists as a new volunteer mentor.
Oh, yeah, that's right, great.
Also just wanted to highlight our success in securing 2 minor infrastructure grants through the Education and Care Unit that have been used to install a reverse cycle heat pump at our Dover childcare site, and with a second grant to be used to install a shade sail to help protect children during the summer months. 2 more points. Wanted to highlight our success in securing a $30,000 grant from the state government's Charge Smart electric vehicle fast charging program, which will contribute towards installation of a public charger at Signet in partnership with Electric Highway Tasmania during 2022. And finally, just wanted to also highlight we've finalised the works under the Signet Road Reseal program carried over from 2021, including Emma Street, Christina Street, Donahue Street, Winds Road and Thorpe Street. So thank you.
Excellent, thank you very much. I don't have any items to speak to this time on my activities report. The next report is the Marketing Strategy Update, July to November 2021. Then we have a Round 2 Quick Response Community Recovery Grants 2021 application list. We have the Arts and Culture Committee minutes of the 4th of November that I believe Councillor Campbell will speak to. Would you like to do that now?
Yes, so just like to bring a few things to the attention of everybody.
Councillor Campbell, could you put your microphone on, please? Thank you.
Yes, the 2021 saw another year impacted by COVID. However, this provided the Arts and Culture Committee with rich opportunities and important opportunities to showcase even more the creative talents of the amazing artists, writers and makers in the Huon Valley. The first meeting of 2021 saw the Arts and Culture Committee take a different approach to its usual Huonville meetings, and it was decided to trial engaging with communities by taking the committee to the townships to see whether this could engage more local artists and residents in the arts and culture space. We held a meeting at the Geeveston Town Hall and another meeting in the Cygnet Town Hall, and these meetings were both well attended. This gave the committee the opportunity to hear firsthand what they were doing in their townships and what the committee could do to assist the artists and residents to grow their businesses. The committee took on board some of the ideas for future engagement with the community. We also engaged with the Reconciliation Action Plan, working with the Aboriginal community to exhibit their art and stories at the Huonville Hub and utilising the art box space during NAIDOC Week. We were provided with a magnificent exhibition with a welcome to country and a smoking ceremony at the opening of the week-long exhibition. Recently, we had a Tamoa 2021 Arts and Away event organised by Bronwyn Clark and Henrietta Manning. When visiting some of the artists and makers, I found that they seemed to be very positive about the response they had in attracting visitors to their studios. And I want to thank Bronwyn and Henrietta for the mammoth effort of organising this event, which I believe was taxing for just two people who were also involved in preparing their own works for visitors. We also had the talented Dr. LJ Owens, who ran her Terra Australis Festival, attracting online discussions with many famous writers to engage in the Writers' Festival. LJ was hoping to have these writers visit personally. However, although it was again too difficult with COVID, the calibre of these type of events provide the Huon Valley with many rich opportunities to enjoy literature at its best. And I also want to thank LJ for her hard work this year. We also had a fantastic presentation from Michelle Gledhill from Economic Development, and Michelle provided a very comprehensive update about the brand Huon Valley Tas marketing program. This marketing campaign by Michelle and her team has seen an investment in the media generation over the past 12 months, and Council has observed a tripling of media features and articles. The Huon Valley has been featured in the current edition of the Qantas In-Flight magazine with a double-page spread. This magazine is distributed to their frequent flyer program. This is about $50,000 worth of advertising. Several artists were mentioned, as well as Terhune and Hastings. Huon Valley also features in Escape Travel, Explore Travel and Good Weekend, mainly targeting Sydney and Melbourne audiences. The Huon Valley is expecting to see more visitation from tourists over our key markets once the borders open. We also expect to see an increase from South Australia and Western Australia, with strong bookings into March and April next year. A number of feature articles in the planning stages with freelance journalists, one of whom is the Australian Woman's Weekly. The strategies for 2022 for the Arts and Culture Committee, there is a need for improved performing arts infrastructure, including freestanding and built-in rigs. Moona Arts Centre is a good example of a usable performing arts convention centre. And we realise down here that we lose a lot of opportunities out of the valley because we actually don't have a specific space for, allowing, performing arts or artists to actually, showcase their work or get involved in, particularly for young people. And that's something that the Arts and Culture Committee are aware of, that they're very keen to have things down in the valley for young people, because we don't want to lose them out of the valley, and if we can possibly look at providing something for them in terms of a multifunctional space, that would be a great opportunity for the council to look at.
The arts and culture strategy is through to 2022. Council is preparing a broad community engagement around a longer term vision for the Huon Valley and creating a new strategy for the whole of Council, which will then guide the development of the new arts and culture strategy or plan. I'd like to thank the amazing efforts of our staff engaged with this committee. They are creative, energetic, and they go far beyond what is expected of them. I've been very privileged to work with the committee and the staff, and I'm very thankful to have the opportunity to do so for another 12 months. I'd also like to just put out the call for anyone who's interested. Nominations are now open for people to nominate for the committee, and we'd like to see people come onto the committee who have an interest in the arts and culture and provide us with more opportunities to grow our valley in the arts and culture space. Thank you.
We have a report there of the Youth Committee notes, 12th of November. Marine Facilities Development Advisory Committee minutes. Yes, thank you. Councillor Murray. The Chair.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. We had a meeting in November in regards to a proposal that was offered to council to take over a jetty in Franklin. I am very fortunate to have a wonderful group of people on this committee, a very sensible and experienced marine operators and boating people. So we all evaluated the proposal, and it was decided that because the council already has an existing structure in Franklin, only 300 metres away, and the poor state of repair on this particular jetty, even though we really would like more facilities, the more the better. But in this instance, we've decided to decline the offer and thank the applicant for his generous offer. But yeah, so hopefully somebody else might take on the project. But it was a unanimous decision, and I'd also like to thank the work of Rebecca Bell, amazing effort and groundwork she puts into her work with this committee, as we all know, with the emergency committee as well. So big thank you to her. But yeah, so we concluded on that. We also discussed the Leamington Jetty proposal and ongoing works, and also a few other issues with the wharf at Port Ewan. But yeah, so we've concluded that for the year, and that's about all I've got to say on that. Thanks very much, Matt.
Thank you.
Can I
That's a
ask
question?
Yeah.
Certainly.
Just a question regarding the jetty. Is it? I guess it's two questions. One is it worth exploring the condition of it a bit closer? And the second question is, and that might not be to you, but if council takes on the ownership, would MAST do the maintenance? Because if it's a publicly owned jetty, my understanding is that MAST
thank you kindly for the question there, Councillor Gibson. It's because of the composite of the jetty being steel, and the fact that it was already an existing fish farm in operation before it came to be where it is. So it's at the end of the day, the decision was primarily made around the fact that its life and the drain on council budget over a long period of time is primarily the reason that it wasn't taken on. If it had been of a different composite, I believe that we probably would have chosen differently. But it just seems like a bit of a can of worms there that it's being offered and going to be expensive upkeep. So at the end of the day, we have another existing facility only 300 metres away, and we've chosen to put money, if any, into that structure. And we're really hoping that somebody is going to take up the offer and take up this wharf. I really believe that with some private operator or something comes in there, it's very much needed in Franklin. The more facilities we've got, the better, as I've said. But it's hard to ask the ratepayer to keep putting their hand in the pocket to maintain something of the nature of this when it's in such a deteriorated condition. So that's what we concluded.
I did have a third question which I forgot, which is, did you assess the value of the licence for that jetty? Because to get a new licence along the Franklin foreshore would be, I understand, pretty difficult, if not impossible. So there is a certain value in the...
We very much looked at that aspect as well, and also the proximity to toilets and the fact that that the other facility that council does maintain is under pressure and heavily utilised at times. So we did take that into consideration, and as I'm suggesting, I don't think this cause is lost yet. I believe that the owner has approached MAST, and we believe the owner is not the sort of guy that's going to lay down on this. He will push on until he finds a satisfactory outcome, and I wish him all the best with that. And but at the end of the day, we can't ask the ratepayer of the Huon Valley to contribute to this this structure as at present. That's all I've got to say on it.
Thanks, mate.
All right, thank you. We have a audit panel minutes from the open meeting on the 23rd of November. I'm not sure if anybody wants to speak. Yes, thank you. Councillor Doyle.
Through you, Mayor, it was discussed that we would look into allowing some money to be spent on risk register, which I think everybody was quite happy with that process. We haven't got any more information on that, but that's what we are allowing, some money to be spent on that. So that was really good. Thank you.
All right, lovely. There was also Local Government Association of Tasmania Year in Review 2020-21 information there. There's a link there for that, and the Taswater General Meeting draft minutes of 10 November 2021. Do any councillors have any questions regarding those reports? Yes, Councillor Prince? Yes, you, yeah.
Through you, Mayor, just to the General Manager, is the General Manager able to explain in layman's terms what an accelerated information gathering meeting is? Thank you.
Oh, yes, he would be able to.
Yeah. No.
I think that's in the context of me learning. Yeah. Look, I guess the information gathering has been a case of me meeting with a lot of people rapidly, and so accelerating my learning quickly was to leverage the knowledge of people across our organisation through one-on-one meetings, and equally I've done that through other opportunities to catch up with other stakeholders as well, so external stakeholders, the community more generally in terms of some associations and some customers and suppliers. So,
thank you.
Thanks for the question.
Any other questions? Any activities that councillors would like to table this evening? Yes, thank you. Did you wish to speak to any of it? No, just table? You'll just table yours this time as well? Thank you. Councillor Lovell, Councillor Doyle, those there, thank you. So I refer councillors to the recommendation of this report. Do I have a councillor to move a motion that the general reports of minutes for the period 1 to 30 November 2021 be received and noted? Councillor Campbell, followed by Councillor Doyle as a seconder, thank you. Oh, sorry, Beck, you wanted to say something? My apologies.
Something Councillor Campbell pointed out there with nominations regarding Arts and Culture Committee. Nominations are actually also open for Health and Wellbeing and our Youth Committee as well. Sorry, I had to think of the third one. So they are available on our website and close on the 17th of January.
Thank you. Okay. All right, so I will put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. And that's all councillors present, and the motion is carried. Thank you. We now move to, it's now item 11, council workshops, and there are nil to record. Number 12, councillor questions. I've spoken to Councillor Lovell and Councillor Gibson already to see whether they would consent that I don't read those questions and answers out. They have agreed to that. Do you have any questions, Councillors Lovell or Gibson, regarding the responses you've received? No, thank you very much. We'll move on to 12.2. Councillors, are there any questions without notice? Yes, Councillor Gibson, thank you. Mm-hmm.
I've had an inquiry. Sorry. Through you, Mayor, I've had an inquiry from a resident who lives adjacent to an orchard and wondered what the rules were or what permits or licences were required to have pickers' camps on the adjacent property. He's concerned about them lighting fires and threat of fires, and so he just wants to know what's the correct protocol for that. I was wondering if you could clarify.
Thanks, Councillor Gibson. I think we'll need to take that one on notice and come back to you. Thank you.
Councillor Campbell, did you have some questions? Thank you.
Mayor, thank you to the General Manager. So on page 17 of your report, it relates to a development under your delegated authority for approval of a DA at 22 Kellaway Street, Ranelagh, shipping container. Could you just provide a short summary of how you approved this DA and how you applied your delegated authority as General Manager? I often get questions around delegated authority, and I thought it might just be good to have some clarification on what that means for the community.
It's in the general reports, is it? Yeah.
Page 17, yeah, of the general report.
Of the general reports.
Yes.
In the attachment. Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take that on notice too, Christine, sorry.
No problem. And my second question is, through you, Mayor, to, this might be through to Matthew, I think. Could you just give us a brief update, thank you, Matthew, on the marketing campaign, you know, particularly around the positive financial impact for tourist operators in the Huon Valley? I'm looking at page 57 under economic development. I know they've done a whole lot of work in this area, and I just wanted to sort of see if you had anything you could add in terms of, you know, dollar value.
Through you, Mayor, we haven't gotten to the point yet, because this is a question that Councillor Gibson had asked previously.
Yeah.
We haven't got to the point yet to establish exactly what that dollar value is for each tourist.
Yeah.
Certainly there's going to be a potential change in what that dollar value is, simply because of the changes in COVID and whatever. So that is something that we are still looking at.
Yeah, thank you for that. Another question. On page 42 of the annual report, under economic development, there is a reference to measure of quality of life and wellbeing in the Huon Valley townships and communities as a Neighbourlytics Launch Cities participant for 2020. Could you explain what the term Neighbourlytics means and what benefit it will be to the community to initiate the development of a Huon Valley population growth and development strategy? Thank you.
Okay. Through you, Mayor, the Neighbourlytics project is an assessment of social activity of people within the Huon Valley.
Yep.
So the importance of that is that we know what is important to people in the valley, what they are talking about, what their priorities are. You then match that information with your You're spending data to see how that matches and your demand and supply. You can then also match that with your, as informing the community vision as to what's important in each area. So some areas might be environment, some areas might be open space, some other areas might be river or whatever. So it's a really good guide to what's important, and you can actually match and correlate them up with the other surveys that we're doing. So the Living in the Huon survey, which we're working through, you'll actually be able to see some correlation between that and Neighbourlytics. So it's actually validating the information we're receiving.
Yeah. So that's, at the moment, is that just on hold until we start to do the community engagement? When I looked at the report, I wasn't quite clear on that.
So the Neighbourlytics, Living in the Huon, something called Spend Map, all of that will form part of a background paper which will then go for the process for the community vision.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks. And a final question is regarding the, on page 45 of the annual report, under the waste management strategy, it says that we're developing a Huon Valley waste management strategy and indicates that stage 1 of the community engagement has been completed. So could you advise when this strategy is expected to, be available, to move to the next stage?
Yeah, I'll need to take it on notice to be accurate, but I do believe it's in the next quarter, so early in 2022.
Okay.
So I'll confirm that date for you.
Thank you.
Yep.
My final question would have been for Lachlan, but he's not here, so I'll keep that till next time. Thank you.
Yes, Councillor O'May.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Firstly, I didn't quite hear what Councillor Gibson's question was. It was in regard to fire, wasn't it, or something you said?
It's in with regard to pickers' camps adjacent to other properties. And
in regards to
pickers, fruit picking, camp,
no worries,
camping for fruit.
Okay, anyway, my question is, through you, Mayor, to the General Manager, and to you as well, Mayor, and it sort of piggybacks on Councillor Lovell's comments here in regards to green waste. Being the chairperson of NRM, our budget last year went back into consolidated revenue, and I'm just concerned, and Councillor Lovell has also underlined the fact here, that people were advised on the 10th of October that the green waste date was happening. My personal belief is, with the prolific growth that we've had with all the rains this year and the potential of a fire hazard that we have, that we should have done a bit better job of advertising this, and I also believe we should have had the date a little bit closer to the drying off period when the green matter was potentially finished growing and starting to dry off. I believe we should be promoting to the public to try and help out in a year such as this with reducing fire hazards, not restricting. And I just really believe that we should act a little bit more proactive in this department as far as the green waste removal, and also as the member of NRM, I see the potential of dumping weeds in the environment, because people are going to dump it in other places other than the tip, is going to cost us money in other areas. But my primary concern, as I've underlined, is fire hazard for later on, and I really believe we should be rethinking and re-advertising something. This is my personal view in this particular instance this year, to do something about this, help the public and help our community, and potentially a bushfire is going to cost us a lot more than the free tip day, in my view. So I really think we should be revisiting this particular topic.
So just on the back of that, because this has been an ongoing matter since the 2019 bushfires, as a discussion by councillors, is it, can we have, correct me if I'm wrong, but if I'm heading in the wrong direction, but can we have a report to the next council meeting about scheduling in another green waste day in the month of, February?
I believe that we should be acting now. First, when council gets straight back to work, Mayor, I believe we should be onto it now. We shouldn't be waiting to February, end of February, when you're right on top of the heavy fire period, potentially critical period of burning. So I understand what you're suggesting to bring it back to the next meeting, but what I'm suggesting is that might be too late. I believe we should be making a decision now. At this meeting, with us councillors, that we do something as soon as council workers get back to work in January, they can implement something.
Okay, so we need some advice on that. Normally we'd have Lachlan here, who's responsible for that. Normally we would have Lachlan here, who would be responsible for that. And he's responsible for rostering staff on as well to ensure, to prepare for that increased load, because obviously the ground would need, the area would need to be prepared for an intake of. I'm not trying to put obstacles in the way, but if he was here, he would be considering all of those things at the moment, about accessibility, about resourcing, about making sure there was enough space there for the increased drop-offs.
Also, may I suggest to you then, Mayor, on our special meeting on the 4th of January, that this be another agenda item. I believe this is a matter of urgency. And I believe that we should be trying to do something about it sooner than later.
I think that's very reasonable. So through to the General Manager, can we add that to the list of reports for an additional free green waste day? And it would have to be very soon after the date that we, if possible.
We'll certainly consider that. Yep, we'll take that to that meeting.
To that meeting, okay.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. Right. That's quite acceptable.
All right, thank you. Yes, Councillor Doyle.
On that subject, and I've brought this up numerous times now about our meetings with State Growth, about their wisdom in spraying the grass before they cut it, which means we have that much of dead grass on the sides of our roads. They should have cut it before they did it. So now we've got that chance of a spark, cigarette, whatever it might be, of causing a fire. It's,
It's a double-edged sword, those settlements. Once they cut it, they don't cut it away, it dies anyway.
But at the moment, if you drive from Geeston to Dover, there is dead grass is high.
But in 2 weeks, that'll rot away to nothing. I mean, if you cut it, it's still going to lay there for the same amount of time and die. It's like grass hard,
Yeah. I just think they do things around about the wrong way sometimes, and we do need that meeting with them so we can have this discussion. Whether it's right or wrong, we just still need to have those discussions.
I just want to make sure this is not turning into a grass discussion.
No, not at all, Mayor. I just
okay, because it's question time. It's question time. That's all.
Yeah, can I just put some clarity on this topic right now in regards to Councillor Newell's topic?
Briefly.
Very quickly. Councillor Doyle is correct. Councillor Newell's incorrect, unfortunately, Michael. The fact is, the tall grass, as Councillor Doyle has suggested, is aerated. It will burn much faster than the grass that's been slashed that's on the ground. That is the difference. Long, dry grass is a major problem.
Right, thank you.
So, sorry, but that's...
Okay.
Yeah, no.
That's okay. And I'm not an expert, so I cannot provide any advice at all. Thank you. All right, so... I conclude that's questions without notice. On item 13, there are nil notices of motion. We move straight into the next report, which is a review of lease policy, GovCorp 007, agenda number 15.034/21. I refer councillors to the recommendation of this report, please. Do I have a councillor to move a motion? Councillor Lovell. And a seconder, please. Councillor Gibson. Councillor Lovell, do you have any opening remarks?
I was happy with this report. Thank you, Mayor, and the changes.
Thank you. Yeah. All right. Would anybody like to speak for the motion, please? For the motion?
Yes.
Or you have a question?
For the motion, I do have a question.
Yes.
With regards to 2.3, the extension of a lease, and just wondered whether that comes back to council for when the lease goes past the 5-year period. Does the question of a second 5 years come back to council, or is that automatic? Because I think that it should come back to council, because we're the ones who are sort of on the ground, connected with the communities and aware of, you know, what other opportunities there are, or, you know, issues with particular leases.
So through the Mayor to Matthew, thank you.
Thank you. Through the Mayor. The review has taken into account the fact that there is a need to bring things to councillors early. Not every decision comes back to council, in the sense that if it's not public land, it wouldn't necessarily come back to council. However, we're working on a process where we can give you a report which says 6 months out, here's what the leases are and here's what we're proposing. So then that'll mean that if there are any particular issues that come up, they can be flagged early rather than at the last minute once it comes to the council meeting.
Okay.
So that'll be all of the leases.
Right. But that's not written into this lease policy.
No, that's something that we're working on. So hopefully there'll be something in place January, February, and then the next iteration of the lease policy, which needs some further review early next year, or early to mid next year, will include that. We'd just like to know what it looks like before we include it in the policy.
So it wouldn't be prudent at this point just to put pending council approval in front of the sentence, the parties, etc., 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 in 2.3.
It may not be council approval that is needed, because not everything goes to council. But
workshop. Discussion. After council discussion, I just think that should be something in there. I don't know if anybody else agrees.
Policies at times have like addendums attached to them, do they not? So that when that document that you're talking about is attached, it can become like an appendix or something like that to the actual policy when it's completed next year, the process. Sorry, certainly.
Can I just
go
ask
for
a
it.
question, Councillor Gibson? Can I understand what your concern is? So maybe we can address it from that perspective.
I just wouldn't like to see a lease automatically go on for a further 5 years without discussion amongst councillors. It's that simple, really.
Yeah. Okay. And I think as Matt's looking to sort of share, is that we will be coming back 6 months out, so we'd be giving visibility there. So it would definitely be a case of coming back and briefing you on those plans. I'm not sure we do. We're looking to do automatic rollovers, because ultimately what would generally happen for a leasee is they'd be looking to negotiate terms potentially also. So we'd be having those discussions and making sure that it's in keeping with the policy anyway.
Yeah, that was probably, through you, Mayor, that was just probably something that I was concerned about, you know, when you talk about a rollover, you know, there are different reasons why something rolls over, but it seems like, you know, there needs to be discussion around a rollover and, you know, what's behind just rolling it over. It'd be good for councillors to understand, you know, why a lease might be rolling over. And I can understand Matthew's point of, you know, incentivising, you know, the lessees. But I just still think the discussion's good.
Yeah.
Just while we're on questions, just in relation to leases though, when it comes to like sporting clubs, which their ovals there, the club rooms are there, and the sports clubs continue again a year after year after year after year after year.
Yeah.
In that situation, unless it's a new club, one club's dissolved and another one comes in, then it's the norm. I mean, we could probably look back over many, many years and the administration work that's actually used to actually manage that particular lease in what we've had currently compared to using that full period of time to actually manage those. So, I mean, I liked particularly numbers 14 and 15 that I thought were quite reasonable in the actual report about, and I thought was a more contemporary approach to the policy than what's been there previously. And, yeah.
I just think you're right on. So I suppose what's not clarified is when it talks about public land. Now, does that include a building? I mean, sporting clubs, I think, are different. But when we talk about public land, does that include buildings as well?
You may, yes, it can include buildings,
Yeah,
depending on
okay.
what the use is. So
Yeah, okay.
generally halls fit
Yeah.
under the public land category.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So I can understand for sporting, I think that's perfectly good. You know, for that to, you know, for them to roll over, it makes sense. Like, unless, like you say, someone else comes in and wants to, you know,
Like
they're
a
a different
new
club.
operator.
A new operator.
Yeah, I think that's the point. Like, if there is a new sporting group that is very energetic, but the existing one just gets the lease rolled over automatically, then you don't get this discussion.
So are they the ones that get presented 6 months? That's a situation where before, say it was a 5-year lease and then it expires, you get a report 6 months prior, or is that the one? Yes, that's it, if you could. Yes.
Sorry, can I just
Yep.
make sure that I'm on the same page here? So with the point you referenced, Councillor Gibson, is it under the contract 2.3 that you were referring?
I think that was it, yes.
So that's actually referring to the schedule. So what the schedule would do, so if we were in a situation where we put a lease together and we said we're doing a 4+1 or a 3+2, that's the terms we're talking about. I think what we may have misled there is about where we get to the end of the lease and we're negotiating would be a different matter to one where we go, look, you've got our 3+2, and when you get 6 months out, we want to know from the leasee's perspective, are you going to roll that into that second stage of the lease, which is a further 2 years?
So
Here it says at the expiration.
It's an
of the
option
term.
within the
Yeah,
lease
yeah,
agreement,
yeah.
This is the parties may agree at the expiration of the term that the agreement be renewed for a further term set out in item 5.
Yeah, so if you
Of the
turn
second
to
schedule.
page 24, the second schedule references a period of further lease in the actual lease agreement. So when we're setting up the agreement in its initial stages, we go, well, we're going to lease this premises to you for 3+2,
Yeah.
and so this is just confirming whether that leasee is going to exercise the second part of the lease, which would be that extra 2 years.
So that's what you call the split lease, isn't it?
Beg your pardon?
That's called a split lease. So you're doing the 3+2.
Yeah.
So, but when you talk about, you know, is it, are you trying to go towards a 5-year lease rather than the split lease?
Well, we'll determine those based
Yeah,
on
yeah.
what we're leasing.
Yeah.
Our preference at this stage, as we've sort of communicated, is that we've got a standard practice, as I understand now, of doing a 3+2.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, we put that in place. But the reality is we might have a lease that's only 2 years, we might have a lease that's out to 5, and we'll work out, you know, with the leasee what they're looking to do. But we're trying to extend it for a couple of reasons. One, to give incentive for our leasees to invest in, you know, some of these areas, but also to remove the administrative burden that is being placed on us as we are making our way through these processes.
I mean, I'm quite happy. I like the 5-year lease. I think it makes sense business-wise. So that's probably why I was thinking 3+2. Why not just go for a standard 5-year?
That's one of the amendments in the lease policy.
Yeah.
So it's effectively up to 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
simple.
lovely. Thanks.
You right, gentlemen?
Oh, sorry, Bill, I just got cramped, that's all.
All right. Councillor Lovell, sorry, does anybody wish to speak for the motion? Anybody wish to speak against the motion? Councillor Lovell, do you have any closing remarks?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Okay, then I will put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. And that's all councillors present, and the motion is carried. Thank you. Do you need to have time out, Councillor O'May, for a moment? All right, thank you. The next report we go to is the proposed establishment of a Risk and Finance Committee, agenda number 15.035/21. I refer councillors to the recommendation of this report. This report outcome should be very familiar to you because it was just discussed very recently. Do I have a councillor to move a motion, please? Councillor O'May, thank you. A seconder, please. Councillor Gibson, thank you. Councillor May, do you have any opening remarks?
Yes, Mayor, I think this is a great proposal and I look forward to the outcomes and findings of this recommendation if it's implemented. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody would like to speak for the motion? Yes, Councillor Lovell.
I'd just like to say that, yeah, I didn't really agree that we needed a risk and finance committee because it takes up more time. I think it's more resources when we actually have that access to the director. And I think, you know, the things that we really want to find out, he's always been forthcoming with. So I think this is a good solution at the moment. Thank you.
Certainly. Thank you. Does anybody wish to speak against the motion? All right, then I will put the motion... Oh, sorry. Councillor O'May, do you have any closing remarks? You don't have to.
No, Mayor. All good, thanks.
Thank you. All right, I'll put the motion then. All those in favour, please raise your hand. And that's all councillors present and the motion is carried. Thank you. We now move on to the financial report, agenda number 16.019/21. I refer councillors to the recommendation of this report. Do I have a councillor to move a motion, please? Councillor Doyle, a seconder, please. Councillor Prince, thank you. Councillor Doyle, do you have any opening remarks?
No, I do not. We were... Oops, sorry, Sandy. No, because we, in audit, we learnt all about what was happening.
You're happy with what the result was? Okay, all right. Okay, does anybody wish to speak for the motion? Does anybody wish to speak against the motion? Has anybody got any questions? I just have a comment, which is I'm looking forward to the mid-year financial review and the opportunity to talk in more detail about our investment portfolio at that time. So, therefore, closing comments, Dr Doyle? Dr Doyle. You're now Dr Doyle instead of DM Doyle. Deputy Mayor Doyle.
No, Mayor.
Okay, lovely. All right. I'll put the motion there. All those in favour, please raise your hand. And that's all councillors present and the motion is carried. Thank you. We now go to the report on COVID recovery update, agenda number 19.014/21. I refer councillors to the recommendation of this report, please. Do I have a councillor to move a motion? Thank you, Councillor Campbell. A seconder. Thank you, Councillor O'May. Councillor Campbell, do you have any opening remarks, please?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to say how thankful we should be as a council for the way that, you know, the recovery has been handled. I think that the staff have done a wonderful job in really providing opportunities, and the council have also provided many opportunities for recovery. And we've seen, you know, some of these grants that have been offered to people, and I think that's been really, it's really kept, I think, the Huon Valley going. And I think it, you know, we've done a great job in that. So I just wanted to say thank you to everybody, to all the staff who've been really behind the scenes, and I think they've done an amazing job throughout COVID. So thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody like to speak for the motion? Would anybody like to speak against? You'd like to speak for the motion? Councillor May?
Yes, Mayor, I think Councillor Campbell hit the nail on the head there. I mean, we've done a great job coming through this thing, but I think that we also should be aware of the circumstances at the moment and believe that this could be very much continuing on. So it's a live happening thing. So Anyway, I think it's a great proposal. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody speak against the motion? All right, Councillor Campbell, do you have any closing remarks?
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you. I'll put the motion then. All those in favour, please raise your hand. And that's all councillors present and the motion is carried. Thank you. We now move on to the Arts and Culture Strategy Implementation Report, agenda number 19.015/21. I refer councillors to the recommendation of this report. Do I have a councillor to move a motion? Yes, thank you, Councillor Campbell. A seconder, please. Councillor Gibson. Councillor Campbell, do you have any opening remarks, please?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy with the recommendation. I think there's some great work going on behind the scenes, and it'll be exciting to see what comes out of the next arts and culture strategy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else to speak for the motion? Anyone else to speak against the motion? I'd just like to thank the staff officers involved in that, as well as the members of the committee who are very active. So, Councillor Campbell, do you have any closing remarks?
I too, Mayor, would like to thank the staff and the committee, particularly some of the staff behind the scenes. I think they've done a great job of just being involved in this committee, and I've been very thankful for it, so thank you.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
So I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. And that's all councillors present, and the motion is carried. Thank you. We now moved on to the Health and Wellbeing Strategy Implementation Report, agenda number 19.016/21. I refer councillors to the recommendation of this report once again. Do I have a councillor to move a motion, please? Councillor Lovell, thank you. A seconder. Councillor Doyle, thank you. Councillor Lovell, do you have any opening remarks?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to acknowledge the huge amount of work undertaken in 2021 by the Director, Rebecca Stevenson, and her team. As we know, health and wellbeing covers a large and diverse area within our communities. Things are constantly changing and evolving, but the one thing that remains is our council's commitment in this space. It continues to shine through, as outlined in this report. And I just wanted to say that there's been a lot of comments from around the valley that, what do we get for our rates? We don't get anything for our rates, which, on social media sometimes when someone sees that their road's not quite up to scratch or whatever, but council doesn't actually stop, and the health and wellbeing team doesn't actually stop. If you read this report, there is that much contained in it. You'd look at it and go, how the hell does anybody keep up with that? And that is across every single town in our valley and every single community. And so I really think that, when you hear people say that we don't get anything for our rates, actually have a look at what's being done in our health and wellbeing space, and the most vulnerable people and our youth and our families and our elderly right across the board are all connected in with this strategy. And yeah, I just want to acknowledge the work that goes on and continues to go on despite COVID, despite fires, and whatever comes our way, this work will continue. Thank you.
Yeah, very well spoken. Right, so do we have anyone else to speak for the motion? Yes, Councillor Doyle.
Through you, Mayor, and on the back of what Joanne has just said, I think we also have to keep in mind the pressure that our doctors and pharmacists in our area have been put under with the pressure of whether they're going to do this or they're going to do that. And I know that our doctors are pushed to the limit, so we all want to be able to get in when we can, but I think we have to be patient and work with them because they're doing the best they can.
Thank you. Does anybody wish to speak against the motion? Any closing remarks? Councillor Lovell? All right, thank you. I'll put the motion then. All those in favour, please raise your hand. And that's all councillors present, and the motion is carried. Thank you. We next move on to the Community Engagement Summary Report and Draft Reflect Reconciliation Action Plan, agenda number 19.017/21. I refer councillors to the recommendation of this report. Do I have a councillor to move a motion? Yep, Councillor Campbell, followed by Councillor Gibson as a seconder. Thank you. Councillor Campbell, any opening remarks?
Thank you, Mayor. I just think that this has been an amazing reconciliation action plan. I think there's been so much work that's been done behind the scenes with going out to the community, trying to get it right, and looking at all the obstacles that can be part of something like this. It's something that is culturally quite different for people and difficult to understand. But I'm just very proud that the council's really on board with this. I've actually on the Royal Flying Doctor Service, I'm the community rep on that, and they have said themselves how difficult it is within their team to understand, you know, what the RAP means, and getting their stuff on board has been a bit behind par. So I think the council and Beck, I think your team has just been amazing, because we've just had so much connection with it through the Arts and Culture Committee, and we've seen some beautiful things happen. We've seen some great educational tools that have been offered to us to actually come and understand what the culture is about. So, yeah, I'm just very happy to, put this recommendation forward. Thank you.
Thank you. So, anybody would like to speak for the motion? Anybody would like to speak against the motion? I haven't got anything else to add other than what I spoke at length yesterday at the AGM regarding the Reconciliation Action Plan, so I'll leave it there. Closing remarks? No, right, okay. I'll put the motion then. All those in favour, please raise your hand. And that's all councillors present, and the motion is carried. Thank you. Well, that's that time again. That council is about to go into closed council. Thank you to those persons that did come to our gallery today, and for those of you that were watching at home, which is the last council meeting for 2021. The next ordinary meeting of the council is on Tuesday the 25th, and I repeat, ordinary, not special. The ordinary meeting is on Tuesday the 25th of January. And we just advise that we are still continuing to record the meeting while we are going into closed session. So the recommendation is that the meeting now be closed to the public as at 7:57 p.m. pursuant to Regulation 15 of the Meeting Procedures Regulations, to discuss the following matters, which is the confirmation of closed minutes, the general reports of closed council. Do I have a councillor to move a motion to go into close? Councillor Doyle. A seconder, please. Councillor O'May, thank you. I'll put the motion then. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors present, and the motion has been carried. So, are we finished our couple more minutes? All right, lovely. And